championship so close you can taste it.
Oliver Askew has won the Freedom 100.
Side by side. And your new champion, Christian Rasmussen. Good morning, race fans. Welcome to what is a dark and gloomy Mid-Ohio sports car course. It is Championship Sunday here at the VP Fuels Road to Indy finale in Ohio. My name is Rob Howden. Thank you so much for tuning in early this morning as we have 3 qualifying sessions set to go. All 3 of our categories getting ready to roll out onto the racetrack. Of course, USF 2000 to start things off. Indy Lights will follow. Indy Pro 2000 to cap off the 3 runs through qualifying. And, of course, we'll wrap up the day late morning, early afternoon with 3 more events to cap off the 2021 season. Engines firing now here on pit lane. We'll get right to it here, ladies and gentlemen, as, again, it is wet here at Mid-Ohio. Now, we kind of figured it was coming sooner or later. Obviously, looking at the forecast throughout the weekend, that potential for precipitation on Sunday was very real. Gorgeous days, though, both on Friday and Saturday. You know, mid-70s, early 70s, and super sunny. Gorgeous days, perfect weather for an October weekend. But the weather was kind of coming across through Indiana. Indianapolis got hit yesterday, and then, of course, arriving here last night. Interesting to look at the actual forecast, though. Rain right now on a very, very wet racetrack. As we know, this qualifying session is going to be wet. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the races because the rain is supposed to stop here in maybe 10, 15 minutes' time and then really not starting back up until about 3 o'clock this afternoon. We'll be done by then. Qualifying for USF 2000 right now on the racetrack here at 8 a.m. 8:45 start time for qualifying for Indy Lights. And, of course, 9:30 then our qualifying time for Indy Pro 2000. You push the fast-forward button to a 10 or 11 a.m. start time for the main event for USF 2000. Noon for Indy Lights and 1:10 for Indy Pro 2000. We'll cap things off by about 2 o'clock this afternoon as we have our season-end championship banquet this evening. So, again, that's the interesting part about it. Will this track start to dry up? And I think most racers would say, listen, either go full dry or full wet. When it's in the middle, it becomes pretty crazy. Teams kind of going back and forth. If indeed it does eventually go dry, you'll have that particular race or session where someone who's potentially rolled the dice on slick tires could go for a race win. Championships, we can talk about that. You can see drivers on the racetrack right now as we're on board here with Eli Navarro from D-Force Racing and the V-Box Motorsport onboard camera. Good opportunity to see where we potentially have standing weather, working the way through the carousel right now. Turn 13 here at this 2.258-mile racetrack. 13 corners here at Mid-Ohio. Tough place to navigate in the rain, and I've raced here a number of times in the wet, both in a 125cc shifter kart and a Formula V as well. And because of the off-camber nature of a lot of the corners here, you can find that car slipping away pretty quickly on you. We saw one driver was off, I believe, over on the exit of turn number 9. That's the right-hand corner that leads into Thunder Valley. Pretty easy to go off track. Drivers running that racing line on the outside of each of the corners here now. Some of the corners you may want to stay closer on, but we'll see them kind of work their way around, finding out maybe kind of a fact-finding mission, exploring where there is grip around this racetrack. But again, drivers out for what will be a 20-minute session. We'll let these guys come around, start laying some times down for you. But to talk about the championships, obviously that was a big thing yesterday as the guys up front who were in the championship fights really able to step things forward. In this Cooper Tires USF 2000 championship, Kiko Porto came in with the biggest lead of the 3 series over Michael D'Orlando and was able to come home with a third-place finish, even though D'Orlando qualified on the pole with a new track record and then ran to second behind Yuvan Sooner-Amurthy. That third-place finish for Kiko Porto enough to secure him the championship and the scholarship to move to Indy Pro 2000 in 2022. That result also when paired with one of the other drivers from D-Force, Nolan Siegel, able to give D-Force Racing their first team championship in the USF 2000 program. And I know that team, both David Martinez and Ernesto, very, very happy with the opportunity to be able to score that championship. Moving in, of course, into the Indy Pro 2000 category, Christian Rasmussen with a win yesterday, all but clinching the championship for himself as well. He only needs to start the main event later on today to be able to secure that championship. It's not done yet. He's got to start, take the green in his Jay Howard driver development machine, and very similar in Indy Lights as well. If Kyle Kirkwood were to qualify on pole, he'd only need to start. If he does not qualify pole, finishes dead last, and David Malukas wins all of the points, all 32 points on offer today, then Malukas could potentially steal the championship away. It's that close in those particular categories. And then again, in the Indy Lights program as well, we're kind of looking at it. If it does come down to the point where Malukas gets all the points, the most points he can get is 530. If Kirkwood would then finish 11th on the racetrack, that's 530. The tiebreaker would, of course, give the championship then to Kyle Kirkwood, as Kirkwood comes in, of course, with 10 wins, having tied the all-time record for Indy Lights up by Greg Moore, an opportunity to break yet another record this weekend. And another thing we're looking at in this particular session as well, 7 poles for Kyle Kirkwood. I think that in talking to Diane Swintel and Steve Whittick, there's a possibility that Kirkwood could as well steal away the record for the number of poles. I'm not sure if that's in a season or the entire Road to Indy career. We'll get that updated for you. A lot of records falling for Kyle Kirkwood. As we know, he has been absolutely incredible throughout his 3 years here in this Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. So definitely a wet weather session for the drivers here today. It was raining, light rain when we got to the track here. Very, very dark, and it's still quite dark outside. What you see actually on the camera that you're watching, probably a lot lighter than it really feels like outside. But again, sun coming up, the cloud cover, of course, keeping it quite dark here trackside. Eli Navarro, on board with him again in the V-Box Motorsport camera view. Big thank you again to Greg DeGeorges from Symmetric Driver Performance Labs, who is working with the guys from V-Box to bring this to the program. Awesome to have this. Oh, there's a driver going off left through the carousel. That's a tough part coming down the hill over 11 into 12. Pretty easy to lose control of the rear. Looks like one of the D-Force drivers going off there. Kiko Porto, the fastest driver so far, 155.399. And you know it's wet when you're over 30 seconds slower. And this racetrack, as I said, very tough in the wet. All the off-camera corners. Think about going through the keyhole, and that's where Navarro's coming here right now. That keyhole, off-camber, right-hander. The car just wants to slide. It wants to rotate itself because of the off-camber downhill nature of that corner as you're trying to feed the wheel into it and get back on the throttle to get down the straightaway. It's so easy to spin the car coming through turn number 2. Kiko Porto, newly crowned champion. Fastest thus far with a 155.399. Yuven Sundaramurthy, winner yesterday, a 155.611. Josh Green in 3rd, Eli Navarro 4th, and Prescott Campbell in 5th. Interesting talking to Steve Whittick before we came on air here on Road to Indy TV and talking about the fact that Sundaramurthy, D'Orlando, and Porto accounting for 51% of the podium finishes this year. That's how consistent these drivers have been. But this is the first time. Yesterday was the first time all those 3 drivers have been on the podium at the same time, which is odd. Not something you could normally see, but first time all those 3 drivers, Yuven, Michael, and Kiko, were on the podium at the same time, even though they've been on the podium 51% of the time. So being told a red flag coming out on the racetrack, we have a driver who's gone off on turn 4. It looks to be potentially one of the turn 3 motorsport cars, potentially off and into 4, and right on the edge of China Beach, which is that huge gravel trap, that sand trap at the end of the long straightaway. AMR safety crew quickly out there. It shouldn't take too long to pull that driver back out, although they're going to have to get that driver all the way back out onto the racetrack because there's no way they're going to fire things up and get rolling in the grass. And to be just that far off, not all the way buried, you have to believe that driver probably just overcooked it a little bit into turn 4, probably just touched the grass a little bit, slid off, and at that point, once you're on the grass, you're a passenger. We'll give you a full-field rundown now that we have the opportunity, and I'll try to figure out which driver that is indeed off track. They're starting to update here on live timing which guys have come into the pits. So everybody coming into the pit lane here right now with the red flag. And right now, Kiko Porto with the fast lap, a 155.399. Yuven Sundaramurthy in 2nd, 155.611. Josh Green in 3rd. Eli Navarro, we are following there on the V-Box camera. He is up to P4. Prescott Campbell in 5th. Nolan Siegel 6th. Christian Weir in 7th. Michael D'Orlando 8th, Jace Denmark 9th, and Josh Pearson rounding out the top 10. Another driver off as well. That looks like the number 32 of Christian Weir. Trying to figure out what camera that potentially is. I think that might be into turn 1. So I think he's gone straight off in 1 right into the tires at the end of the straightaway. They ask Christian if he's okay. He gives a quick nod of the head. So that's good for Christian. But straight off at a turn 1, I believe, into the barriers the tires at the end of that corner. So Weir, who is in 7th, will, depending on what they brought, obviously there's 2 red flags for the incident over in China Beach in turn 4 and here in turn number 1 is Christian Weir in a turn 3 motorsport machine climbing out of that Tatis. Weir had a pretty good run yesterday, finishing in the 9th position. Maybe the 34. Steve Whittick told me that there's actually three different guys as well. So what have I got here? I'm trying to figure out who else potentially could be involved. But yeah, it looks like the reason why there's another car potentially in China Beach as well. So it's not just the one car. There could be 3 different cars down there. So a couple drivers having trouble on the racetrack here, and again, very, very tough conditions as we know. So Porto, Sundaramurthy, Green, Navarro, and Campbell, top 5. Nolan Siegel in 6th spot. Christian Weir 7th. Michael D'Orlando 8th. Jace Denmark 9th. And Josh Pearson rounding out the top 10. Then we've got Spike Kohlbecker in 11th. Bajoy Garg in 12th. Dylan Christie in 13th. Billy Fraser 14th. Andre Castro rounding out the top 15. Miles Rowe in 16th spot. Evan Stammer in 17th. Thomas Naveau 18th. Trey Burke, Michael Myers, Kent Vaccaro, and Jackson Lee rounding out the 22 drivers who have taken time. Just a couple laps able to get into the books here. Very tough conditions. And yeah, there's a better picture in camera 6. Let's see if we can pick that one up, because there's the carnage in China Beach. Nicely evenly spaced. They're socially distancing, which I appreciate. But yeah, 3 of the drivers involved. One's a D-Force driver, and looks like potential right front damage. So I think we had contact there as well. That might as well be the 34 of Dylan Christie. A couple of the turn 3 cars, I think, involved, and one of the D-Force cars involved there. We know that, so that's potentially, all 3 of the turn 3 cars involved in an incident. Christian Weir, so that might be Josh Green then, involved as well in the 33. Green was P3 on his second lap. So red flag coming out for essentially 2 separate incidents, 4 cars involved. We know that we had a driver off on the outside of the carousel as well, but I believe that driver able to continue. We've actually red flagged the time with 12:28 remaining. One of the great things about the Road to Indy, of course, is we have that time window that we're able to work within. The time window for this particular session, 30 minutes. We give them 20 minutes of track time within a 30-minute window, so we've been able to go red right now. That preserves the time. It's not like we're going to let the time just wind out. We still have quite a bit of time left. Only 12 minutes after 8 right now, so really still another 18 minutes available to get that 12:28 in. Crew working quickly to try to get the car done here. They've almost got the 32 of Christian Weir notched down. Once they get him locked in, they'll get him back into the paddock area. That's actually one of the Cape cars, I believe. I mentioned that I thought that might have been Dylan Christie, but I think that's one of the Cape cars that has actually gone off as well in turn number 4. Pretty far away for me to pick a number out on that car. It might be Thomas Nepfu, but no way of confirming that. So this is going to be the job of the crane. They're going to have to bring both these cars in that are in the gravel trap, the one outside the steps trucking, able to get them up with the tow truck there. So we're getting close to being done here. There's going to be time to potentially get the full session in. We do have time built within the sessions as well. As I said earlier, 8:45 scheduled start time for the Indy Lights category, then 9:30 for qualifying for Indy Pro 2000. Kiko Porto had a good day yesterday, and you could hear the emotion. Those of you who maybe followed some of our broadcasts yesterday and some of the interviews we were able to have, Kiko kind of just overwhelmed with the emotion of being able to score that championship. And, you know, for a family like Kiko's, probably doesn't have the funding he needs to continue to move his way up forward. That's what the thing about the scholarship has done. We had Oliver Askew here yesterday as the analyst for our Indy Pro 2000 race, and he said the same thing. Just the opportunity, the chance it gives drivers who maybe don't have the budget to move up through the ranks, that scholarship just giving them that chance, that extra opportunity to be able to potentially work their way all the way to the NTT IndyCar Series. And excited to see what Kiko Porto will be able to do next year. So indeed, drivers involved. It was actually the four of Michael D'Orlando. I knew it was one of the Cape cars. I thought potentially Thomas Nepfu, as he's down in 18th spot, but indeed that was the driver who is second place in the championship standings, Michael D'Orlando. So D'Orlando's car, they were able to bring him right back on with no damage, dropping him back on the track, firing him back up, and he was able to continue as well. So Prescott Campbell as well is the other car. So Campbell is the driver from D-Force. I mentioned one of the D-Force drivers involved as well, the 33 as well of Josh Green, and the 4 of Michael D'Orlando. So some input there as well from Steve Whittick coming down to help me out here in the Road to Indy TV studio. So not surprising. There's 3 guys that would have been running together, right? Josh Green, Prescott Campbell, and Michael D'Orlando, 3 of the front-running drivers, all second-year drivers in this series, but tough to see them get together. You wonder what happened, whether somebody was trying to make a move to the inside, potentially took out one, everybody else got collected. Not sure. It looked to me like there was potential damage on the car of Prescott Campbell, so we'll see whether or not he was able to refire or not. He may be just coming in on the hook. Still 15 minutes remaining in this 30-minute window with 12:28 to go. Red flag has stopped the clock. Porto with the quickest time, only 2 laps, and everybody just getting the 2 laps in at speed. A 155.399 for Kiko Porto, 155.611 for Yuven Sundar. These are 0.2 of a second now, the gap for Porto up front. Be fitting for him to start on the pole position, would it not, for the final main event of the year, having already clinched the championship. 22 drivers here for the VP Fuels Road to Indy finale. 3 more races for you here on Road to Indy TV, and we're thrilled for those of you who have tuned in with us here early this morning. 3 qualifying sessions for you. And my wonder is whether it's kind of stopped raining at this point here, because I know based on what I was looking at on the weather forecast that the rain was potentially going to stop at least sometime early this morning. Then the odds of it coming back in the mid to late afternoon getting a little more real, 30-40% at 3 o'clock. That could definitely present a problem. We had ourselves a wild weekend for sure at New Jersey Motorsports Park when the rain would come and then it would go and then it would come back again. We had guys, of course, starting on the rain tires, and by the end, those rains were absolutely chewed up and gone, while drivers would be pitting at the very start to try to put the sticker tires on to see if those would have worked, and you could see some different strategies happening. It was obviously a big win for Miles Rowe in that wet race as he was able to pass Kiko Porto on the final lap in one of the final corners to slide through to get Force Indy their first victory, a very emotional win for everybody at Force Indy, and of course Miles Rowe as well. But again, you look on the other side of the coin, Kiko Porto could have fought Miles even more aggressively for the win, but thinking more championship-wise, he was able to come through nicely and score a second-place finish, which of course paid off big time. So looking to dial things back in here now, you can see the track still significantly wet. AMR safety crew will have another quick look around to make sure everything's cleared up. They're trying to get things done up in turn number 4 after the incident involving Michael D'Orlando, Prescott Campbell, and Josh Green. Those drivers 3rd, 5th, and 8th in the order based on their fastest laps. You have to believe bringing up the red flag, they're going to lose their fast laps as well, so that could drop them down the order, especially those that are potentially damaged. If Prescott Campbell not able to get back onto the racetrack, he'll see himself fall down the order. It was a tough one for Prescott yesterday, and there's a bit of a concern right there, is that huge standing water puddle on the exit of turn number 9. Drivers will have to be very ginger coming through there to make sure they don't get into it. So a bit of a track inspection, I would assume, happening right now. That's one of the parts of this racetrack when we do get enough rain, it puddles there. Drivers have to be smart, especially with these lighter cars. Maybe a little different in an Indy car, a lot more heavier, more downforce. Looks like the AMR safety crew also continuing to look potentially at the tires over in turn number 1 where Christian Weir made that contact. As you can see, the final car being extricated from the incident in turn 4. And indeed, yeah, the AMR safety crew having a look. That's one of the things they do. You think about all the facets of what the AMR IndyCar safety crew will do in terms of taking care of incidents, of course, servicing a driver if indeed there is an injury first, then clearing up the incident, and they do so with such precision and such speed. But then also making sure the racetrack and the safety components of the track, meaning fencing, tire barriers, whatever it may be, Armco, making sure that is all safe and ready to go. The car, Prescott Campbell, coming back on the hook, not able to roll, so that should be it for Prescott Campbell. That means the damage significant enough for him not to climb back behind the wheel. So at 8:19, we're not going to get the full 12:28 in unless we go a little bit later. As we say, 15-minute time between the sessions, so it'll be at the discretion of our race director, Joel Miller, to see whether or not there's an opportunity. And, of course, Tony Kottman, the race director of Indy Lights, will be there as well. And race control, they'll be able to talk whether or not they could push forward. But you'd have to believe potentially stopping right at 8:30. So hoping we can get at least, 7, 8, 9 minutes in. That'll give these drivers enough lap time. Right now, Kiko Porter would be more than happy to see the session end. A 1:55.399, the fast time so far for the D-Force driver, who has D-Force having all 4 of their drivers right now in the top 6. Eli Navarro in 4th, Prescott Campbell 5th, and Nolan Siegel 6th. We know that Campbell very likely getting that fast lap taken away. So after 2 gorgeous days here at Mid-Ohio, where again we had temperatures in the low 70s, sunshine, a little bit of cloud cover, really absolutely beautiful in terms of an opening weekend in October. The weather that we do often see come through this area at this time indeed did so with the rain. As I said, I've raced here many times in the previous decade when I had a chance to do more racing. And I want to say I was probably wet every time I was here in October. And a note to drivers based on personal experience. When you're done this weekend and you have wet gloves, don't leave them in your helmet over the winter. Trust me, done that. That helmet no longer usable. Porto, Sundaramurthy, Green, Navarro, and Campbell, top 5. Siegel, Weir, Denmark, Pearson, and Kohlbecker, top 10. And that is, of course, before any laps are dropped due to bringing out the red. AMR safety crew with another cruise around here. 9 minutes remaining in the 30-minute time window. Final qualifying session of the 2021 season for the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship. And man, it has been one of the most competitive years in this series, and the continuing increase of top-level talent coming into USF 2000, wanting to get into this road to Indy, potentially work their way to the NTT IndyCar Series. It's just increased, drastically pushed the competition level of USF 2000 upwards. And again, that was kind of one of the reasons, one of the motivators for Danny Anderson to announce the new USF Juniors program for 2022, which essentially will be that feeder series that leads into the road to Indy, more of an entry-level program using the Ligier F4 HPD car for 2022. A brand new car will be announced for that particular program. Same kind of specs in terms of horsepower and downforce levels for the 2023 season. But that USF Juniors program, really a perfect opportunity for drivers coming out of the Lucas Oil School of Racing in their Formula Car Series, having them come out then into the USF Juniors program. 6 races, or 6 weekends, triple header weekends for 18 races in total. The focus will be on driver development, coaching. Dan's brought in Gabby Chavez, of course, a former Indy Lights champion and IndyCar racer and current sports car racer, to coach these young drivers, get them dialed into the fact that they will be ready when they come out of the USF Juniors program to come in and be instantly competitive in USF 2000. And, even sweetening the pot, putting $200,000+ in scholarship money up for grabs. The champion of USF Juniors will then get the scholarship to move to USF 2000. We haven't had that kind of scholarship since the Mazda scholarship shootout a number of years ago, which of course benefited drivers like Hunter McElroy and Oliver Askew, giving them the opportunity to come out of karting and other Formula Car programs into the USF 2000 series. Safety crew continuing to have a look, I believe, at the racetrack where Christian Weir went off. Still not happy with that particular corner. Time ticking away on this window, just 6 more minutes to go. You hate to see when there's a damage to a corner, one of the safety areas where you simply can't go back to green, but I think they're really looking to make sure these tires are stacked correctly, because if Christian could get there, somebody else could get there, and you want to make sure that the safety level of that corner remains. Again, for those of you tuning in, we will go qualifying all morning here. The drivers in Indy Lights, just about 20 minutes away for them getting on the racetrack for their session here to get on for qualifying to see how things set up. We'll follow that up as well at 9:30 with a qualifying run for the Indy Pro 2000 category. A bit of a break, probably about 40 minutes before we come back for our pre-show to start our main events. It will be likely 10:40 a.m. for the pre-show to start for the USF 2000 race number 2. From there, we roll all the way through 12 o'clock scheduled start time for Indy Lights, 1:10 for Indy Pro 2000 to cap off the 2021 Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires season. Track still wet. And again, we can see, based on some of the other cameras we're looking at, that work continues to be done, I believe, in turn number 1. If you missed any of the action from yesterday, the USF 2000, Indy Pro 2000, Indy Lights races for the opening races of this VP Fuels Road to Indy finale weekend, all available already on the Road to Indy TV YouTube channel. Had a chance to look at a couple of them yesterday. I know people were wondering, especially where they could find the events from Indy Lights yesterday. Again, those are available on the Road to Indy TV YouTube channel already. Feel free to watch all the coverage throughout the season. And if you have not yet downloaded the Road to Indy TV app, get that done. Get yourself set up for the entire off-season and the content that will be put out throughout the off-season, as well as setting yourself up for the 2022 season. I think potentially the tire wall repaired now. We are winding down time, though. We'll see whether or not they can push a little bit to get maybe a little more time on the racetrack. Hoping that we're not going to go checker here, maybe give them a couple minutes on the racetrack. But at this point, as I said, time winding down, 8:26 on the clock. Nope, that is it. So being told the checkered flag is coming out, they weren't able to get that racetrack repaired, so drivers only getting 2 laps in the books. And again, there's going to be some adjustments to the time once the penalties for causing the red flag come out. The damage to turn number 1, the track itself, the barriers was too much to get done in time to be able to get more track time. Tough for these young drivers. We'll see what happens by the time they come out for their race. We could be back to dry racing as well. That'd be one of the interesting things. The bottom line is Kiko Porto, that 155.399. He got that banker lap in early in the wet, pushed hard in very tough conditions. Kiko Porto with the fast lap, 2/10 quicker than Yuvan Sundar and Murthy. Josh Green ends up in 3rd. Eli Navarro in 4th. Prescott Campbell 5th. Oh, all right, being told potentially they abandoned that qualifying session. We'll update you folks when we get back. I'll get a chance to talk to race control, and we'll find out exactly what happened. I'm not sure whether or not the times that we just saw are going to stand. When we get back after this break, when we get set to go qualifying with Indy Lights, I'll give you the update on exactly what the race control has decided before we get headed into Indy Lights qualifying. Stay with us, folks. Lots of coverage all day long here on Road to Indy TV. Am I clear? Welcome back, folks, to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course as qualifying continuing here this morning for the final rounds of this year's Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. This is the VP Fuels RTI finale here at Mid-Ohio. A tough start, of course, when we got here. Rain was falling, a very, very damp track with a little bit of standing water. USF 2000 drivers getting out for the first maybe 6, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, getting things kind of dialed in. But we had an incident involving 3 of our front-running drivers going down into turn number 4. They all ended up out in China Beach. And then another separate incident in turn 1 involving Christian Weir brought out a yellow flag and eventually the red flag. Took a long time to be able to get those cars out of the beach with, of course, the wet weather, some damage as well to the tire wall in turn 1. By the time we were able to get things dialed in, really only a couple more minutes left in a 30-minute window. So being told that what will happen because of not able to get enough lap times in for USF 2000, they will turn around and use the second fastest lap of qualifying from yesterday to set the grid for that main event, the final race of the season for those drivers here this afternoon. It'll be early. It'll be later this morning, 11 a.m. scheduled start time for race 2 for USF 2000. That moves us forward right now. The rain itself, the falling rain is done, but we do still have some misting. The track, as you can see, is still incredibly wet all around the racetrack, and very likely will be full wet here for the foreseeable future. Indy Lights drivers on the racetrack now to qualify, and of course, a big day yesterday for Kyle Kirkwood for Andretti Autosport as he was able to get a victory there. His 10th win of the season coming off a strong run in qualifying, his 7th pole. A lot going on for Kyle Kirkwood here this particular weekend. If he is able to win today, he will set a new all-time single-season win record for the Indy Lights program as well. A couple drivers, as you can see, off the racetrack already getting a feel for this facility in the wet. But again, Kyle Kirkwood would be the all-time single-season win leader, tied right now with the late, great Greg Moore at 10 victories. A win or a podium today as well. Of course, this is information coming from Steve Whittick and TSOladder.com. If you don't follow Steve, do so on TSO Ladder, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. And, of course, subscribe to Trackside Online as well. But a podium today will tie Kyle Kirkwood with Oliver Askew for a single-season record of podium finishes. And then the pole this morning will also tie him for all-time Road to Indy poles with Spencer Piggott. So a lot happening in this session potentially here as Kyle Kirkwood tries to reset a lot of the records in this Road to Indy. Red flag already coming out, so just as the USF 2000 drivers had trouble on the racetrack, the same going now for those in Indy Lights at the very top level of this ladder program. They're struggling as well. 170 horsepower, 450 horsepower, so remember a little more on the rear wheels. Driver that we saw causing the red flag, I think we saw that before, coming out of turn number 4 before you transition up the hill to 5. It was Benjamin Peterson, the driver for Global Racing Group with HMD Motorsports, the driver off the racetrack. AMR safety group, yeah, you can see, we'll get a shot of this as all the drivers come back to pit lane. You can see just far out of the left side of the screen, you can see that Benjamin Peterson's gone off there and potentially some contact with the tire barrier. Problem obviously with the wet grass is even if you can get the thing refired, you're likely just going to spin the wheels. So the AMR safety crew will have a look at the situation, find out whether or not there's any damage to that Global Racing Group machine. If not, potentially dragging him back onto the racetrack, getting him refired so he can come back to pit lane. So indeed, Kyle Kirkwood had a tremendous day yesterday, did he not? His 4th straight win. Coming off victories in the second round at Portland, dominated the action at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and then essentially dominated yesterday as well, qualifying on the pole earlier in the day, getting out in front of David Malukas, his championship challenger, and then running away to a solid victory there to, again, get maximum points. Fast lap of the race did get maximum points. Fastest lap actually went to Daniel Frost. So Daniel getting a point there, but Kirkwood able to pull away to a 6.4-second win over David Malukas, all but locking in the championship. It's not done, though. If Kyle gets on the pole in this particular qualifying session, then it will confirm, because then all he has to do is still start the race this afternoon. That's the key for all the drivers. They are going to have to start. Both Christian Rasmussen in Indy Pro 2000 and Kyle Kirkwood in Indy Lights. They must start the main event to get those final points, finishing 12th to be able to get out onto the racetrack and get the job done. And again, the main event for Indy Lights set to go right at the noon hour today. We'll, of course, have a bit of a pre-show before that, before we roll out with the final race. It'll be the final race for Indy Lights as part of the Anderson Promotions program, as well as the stewardship of the great program passing back to the IndyCar Series, as it did moving from IndyCar to Indy Lights in 2014 to the Anderson Promotions Series group. Road to Indy still expanding a little bit this year as the announcement of the USF Juniors program earlier this week, the new program that will feed into the USF 2000 series. That program offering a $200,000 scholarship for drivers, and the champion moving his way up. Over $325,000 in prizes, including the scholarship, lined up for USF Juniors next year. And indeed, back onto the racetrack, no damage to the race car, and Benjamin Peterson able to refire and head himself back to pit lane. So we will be going back to green momentarily. Here for Indy Lights, Robert McGinnis had a good run yesterday as well. Started in the 4th spot, slotted quickly into 3rd, and had an early race battle with his teammate Daniel Frost, able to hold on to that position. And post-race, Robert did thank the fact that we don't have push to pass here this weekend. It's one of the things that obviously is a big component of the Indy Lights program, is that 50 extra horsepower to push to pass, using only offensively, not defensively. Because the fact that we're here on our own and not with IndyCar, we don't have the full IndyCar timing system, which provides us with a lot of different loops around the racetrack, timing loops. We need to use those to determine the gap between the drivers in terms of being that within that 1.5 second gap that allows push to pass to be used. Without those timing systems, we can't really use it effectively. So the decision was made to not have push to pass here this weekend. So Kirkwood was the winner yesterday. David Malukas coming in 2nd. Robert McGinnis back on the podium with a strong run to 3rd. Daniel Frost in 4th. And Stingray Robb for Juncos Hollinger Racing, getting his best finish of the season in 5th. Had actually qualified P3 and was on a flyer in the late going of the qualifying run to potentially move his way up to 2nd, as was his teammate Rasmus Limp. They were both on flyers and had the opportunity to work their way forward, but Stingray looping it coming out of turn number 1 at the end of that qualifying session brought the red flag out. He ended up losing the lap, and then the red flag also hindering that fast lap, that flyer for Rasmus Lint, so he ended up starting in the 9th position instead of somewhere within the top 5. Tough one for him, but again, Stingray Robb started 7th, worked his way up to 5th, his best finish of the season. Linus Lundqvist started 10th. He was the hard charger, working his way up into the 6th spot. Manuel Suleiman was 7th. Benjamin Peterson 8th. Devlin DeFrancesco 9th. Rasmus Lind 10th. Antonio Saravalli in 11th. And Christian Bogle in 12th. Good battle throughout that race, really, between Suleiman, Peterson, DeFrancesco, all in the middle of a scrap there with Linus Lundqvist as well. Back to green flag. Drivers have taken to the racing service once again. Again, that red flag shutting down the time. We do have a good time window here for the drivers in Indy Lights, a 30-minute qualifying session in terms of 30 minutes on track. Their qualifying session will cap here, I believe, 9:15, so they'll try to get all their time in here. They're obviously not going to get it all done with that stoppage. No one able to get a time in. That happened on the opening lap. So really a fact-finding mission on this opening circuit. These drivers have to kind of work their way around. Kyle Kirkwood talked about the fact that he's never lost in Road to Indy competition here at Mid-Ohio, but he's also never been around this racetrack in the wet. And it is unbelievably tough. We saw that in USF 2000. So really these drivers right now, you can see how tough it is right them to get some power down here. We've had some wet weather racing in the past in Indy Lights, but man, look at them trying to get the power down coming over the hill of turn number 9. What a effort it will be. Like trying to get down the inside, get that car straight. That's Stingray Robb trying to straighten up as fast as he can. Car control for sure. Driver spins coming out of turn number 13 onto the front straightaway. This is going to be, these guys are literally tiptoeing around here now. And it's not like it's overly cold trackside. We're not down like into the 50s or you know, high 50s. It's 64 degrees trackside. So this, wait till we see what kind of lap times we get here. 450 horsepower, not easy to put down on a track like this. Benjamin Peterson in pit lane, the team looking over the race car. Yeah, these drivers will be searching all over this track to figure out a way to get the best lap down. Wow, being told another red flag coming out. Not sure what happened as of yet. We still have not put a lap in the books. This track is treacherous here today. Another driver off track. Quick scan across the cameras I have available here, and I don't see, being told it could have been Christian Bogle off the racetrack. Not sure yet what corner. So updating now, that would be turn number 7. That's coming, we're watching turn number 6 now. Down coming out of Madness, out of 5. The right hand turn 6. Here's turn 7 here, 7 and 8. So then told that Christian Bogle able to continue. So ideally all the cars, I'm assuming, will come back to pit lane, then refire once again. So Bogle went off. We went red. Got to go back at it. So treacherous conditions here now for these drivers. And it's not even raining at this point here. This is reminding me of back a couple of years when we ran at the streets of Toronto. Did an IndyCar doubleheader that weekend, and they had repaved the back straightaway, which is obviously a main throughway into Toronto. And the pavement that they used, fantastic, of course, for everyday use in terms of commuting, but it was not porous at all. And to the point, the aggregate they used was so compact that the water just pooled on top. And the drivers could hardly put any input into the throttle at all. We ended up having to come back the next day and do 2 races on the Sunday because there just was absolutely zero grip on track. Still have not put even 1 lap in the books as of yet. And so similar conditions that we saw in USF 2000 when they were only really going to get the 2 out laps in. That result scuttled, and USF 2000 now using the second fastest lap of qualifying. Everybody back to pit lane. As I had said, Christian Bogle with the spin in turn number 7. He was able to continue. So we'll see whether or not we go right back to green once we've come in here. Kyle Kirkwood coming into this race with a 22-point advantage over David Malukas. If he qualifies on pole, he'll only need to start the race. If he does not qualify on pole, he'll only need to finish in 11th. That would put him in a tie. That's if Malukas then gets all 32 points on the day, which would put him at 530. Kirkwood finishing 11th puts him at 530 points. And that would be a tie break that Malukas would win on the strength of 10 wins to Malukas' 7. At that point, it would be 8 wins because Malukas would have to win to force that tiebreaker. So, to be honest, Kyle Kirkwood really only needs to start the main event and get himself anywhere into the top 10 to be able to lock this thing down. Malukas has to have a perfect day, all 32 points. Drivers all back into pit lane at this point. Again, red flag, still 26 minutes and 29 seconds left to go on the time clock. But based on the fact this window is scheduled to, I believe, shut at 9:15, 18 minutes remaining in the time window. Drivers in Indy Pro 2000 set to roll on track at 9:30 for their qualifying run, but haven't seen much in terms of running here today. Be nice to get some input from Parker Thompson. Of course, he's out in the paddock, working the paddock right now for Road Indy, and would be lovely to get maybe some input from a driver who's been here before to find out what's it like in this particular racetrack. I know I've driven here, as I said before, in the rain, but it's been very low horsepower machinery where you're not as worried so much about that, that snap throttle, getting that throttle down and having the rear wheels break loose. The cars I've driven, definitely not the case. It's more just placing yourself on the racetrack, and indeed that's part of it. Just take away the simple issues with trying to get 450 horsepower from the engine down to what is a very slick racetrack. We talk about this track all the time about the off-camber corners and the undulations and the elevation change. Anytime you're going over a rise, you lose so much weight on the car that it's easily going to snap around. We talk about having to rotate the car big time here at Mid-Ohio, whether you're rotating through the downhill off-camber turn 2 keyhole or the top of the hill in turn 5 in Madness, or rolling into Thunder Valley coming over turn number 9. We saw some of the shots of turn 9 as the driver's just trying to get the car straight as possible before they roll back on that throttle. 15 minutes remaining. Clock actually back down and winding. We're still red. Waiting to see if we will eventually go green here. So back underway, green flag with about 15 minutes remaining in this session. Hopefully some drivers will be able to put some lap times in because as live timing is updated, the fastest time we've seen so far is a 6-minute and 4-second lap. So we'll see what happens when the guys get around here. Oh, what a way to start the final race day of the season. Championship Sunday here at the VP Fuels Road to Indy finale weekend. Again, this race was rescheduled from the cancellation of the Honda Toronto Indy. Shame that race again canceled for the second straight year. Ideally, we'll see it again. It's obviously back on the NTT IndyCar schedule for 2022, which is exciting. I know a lot of people loving to get up to Toronto. Hopefully things will be fine there. The COVID-19 number is actually fairly low. I believe less than 6,000 active cases, less than 300 people, I think, in the hospital right now. We, of course, wish everyone well in Canada and anybody dealing with COVID-19 around the country and around the world right now. But the numbers are significantly low in Toronto. We'll cross our fingers that in about 6 months' time, or even longer than that, I guess it would be probably 8 or 9 months until we're there in July. Hopefully things can get in control as we hope for the remainder of the world as well. So the cancellation of Toronto pushing things to have this additional race so we can get these races in the books, giving us a standalone weekend, the VP Fuels Road to Indy finale here at Mid-Ohio. So crossing our fingers, these drivers can get a couple of laps in here and get a feel for it. Your car has to be straight when you're rolling on that throttle. Let's put it that way. Otherwise, it can quite easily kick the rear end out. We saw the lap times in USF 2000 about 30 seconds off the pace. Manuel Suleiman Kiko Porta was actually the fastest driver. But again, with just 2 laps going in, the decision was made to cancel that session and pick up the second fastest lap from qualifying for race 1. So that's the way we'll grid things up for USF 2000 when they go racing later this morning. USF 2000 set to go at 11 a.m., just about 2 hours from now. USF 2000 on track for the final race of the 2021 season. Every one of those drivers starting to think about 2022 and the off-season testing beginning in October here in November. Look for the schedules to come out for the Road to Indy as well, and Indy Pro 2000 and USF 2000, as well as the schedule for the newly announced USF Juniors program. We're going to see at least a one lap coming in here pretty soon, I think, as the drivers are finally starting to work their way around here. You got 450 horsepower behind you, but you just simply cannot use it. It's that wet here. That standing water we had at the end of the runoff curbing there in turn 9 now gone. You can see that's dissipated as it was quite heavy during USF 2000, but it has drained away as the rain no longer falling, but it is significantly misty. Linus Lundqvist with the first decent lap, a 150.277 for Lundqvist. Benjamin Peterson in the number 24 in second. David Malukas in third. Devlin DeFrancesco fourth, and Daniel Frost in fifth. Peterson's going to have to put a couple of good laps in because he's going to lose his best after that red flag early. So 150.277 for Linus Lundqvist. Malukas now to second. DeFrancesco third. Literally only 5 seconds faster right now than USF 2000, just based on trying to get that power down. As I said before, the drivers in the Indy Pro 2000 category set to get on track for their qualifying session in about 27 minutes' time. 11 minutes remaining in the session here for the drivers. Yeah, Peterson, they've taken that fast lap away already, so he's now to the tail of the field. Has not yet put a lap in. This next 2 are going to be crucial for him. Get those banker laps in. I'm always interested to see which drivers kind of can excel in the wet because it is the great equalizer, right? It doesn't matter how much horsepower you have. Doesn't really matter about setup either. Now potentially hearing that a driver has gone off in the carousel turn number 12 as well, has gone into the tires. So this is just not going in the right direction. The driver's not able to keep himself on the racetrack. Have not heard anything yet in terms of yellow. It's going to be the number, it's actually Kyle Kirkwood potentially in the tires. We are still green, but it's Kirkwood off the racetrack. He is P4 right now, a 150.314, so Kirkwood off the racetrack in turn number 12 and in the tires. So you can probably scratch out Kyle Kirkwood tying Spencer Pigot for all-time poles in the road to Indy, as he is likely not going to grab it here. Lundqvist on top of the 148.0. Benjamin Peterson 148.8. So he'll lose that 148.8 likely, so he'll be back to a 150. Peterson needs one more. Peterson should bank one more fast lap here. Not sure whether he may have come into pit lane. David Malukas now improves up into second. Kirkwood third. DeFrancesco fourth. Peterson fifth. McGinnis in sixth spot. Frost in seventh. 8th is Lint, 9th is Suleiman, 10th is Robb, 11th is Saravalli, 12th is Bogle. Number of drivers in the pit lane still. And indeed, red flag coming out here with 9 minutes remaining. And I believe the incident is Kyle Kirkwood in turn number 12, the Andretti Autosport driver. Off the racetrack, red flag coming. I don't know whether or not we'll be able to go back to green at this point here. The AMR safety crew quickly down to the scene now. You can see at the top of the screen. Try to pull that car of Kyle Kirkwood out of turn number 12. Right now, as they run on the track, it's Lundqvist P1, Malukas in second, Kirkwood third, but he will lose his fast lap, of course, with the red flag. DeFrancesco fourth spot, Benjamin Peterson in fifth. He's lost his red flag, his fast lap again already, a 152.4. The next best for Peterson, so he's currently P5. Should Kirkwood lose his fast lap, that would move Peterson up to fourth, DeFrancesco to third. Robert McGinnis now sixth, Daniel Frost seventh, Rasmus Lint in eighth, Manuel Suleiman ninth, Stingray Robb 10th, Antonio Saravalli and Christian Bogle rounding out the field. 8 minutes remaining in the session and the time window. Drivers all back to pit lane, minus Kyle Kirkwood. So again, that record for Spencer Pigot for the all-time pole positions in the road to Indy, safe for another year as Kyle Kirkwood, unless he is able to get back out here and bang out a couple of big laps at the end. If we go back to green, Pigot looks pretty well positioned to be able to hold that spot. Final couple of drivers coming into pit lane, DeFrancesco being one of them. Linus Lundqvist, the cleanest driver on the racetrack, 148.07. David Malukas 149.3. So Lundqvist showing his ability to modulate the throttle. All about driver input in these kind of situations. Here's Kyle Kirkwood here. Looks like he's lost the front wing off that nose assembly. So the 28 brought back out onto the racetrack. Still over 6 minutes remaining. They may be able to get two more laps in. So this could be interesting at the end. They'll get Kyle Kirkwood. He's actually fired up still. Not sure they'd even kill the engine. So they'll try to get that wing replaced for Kirkwood. He'll lose his fast lap and indeed drop down to 11th. So he doesn't even have a lap in the books yet, not even a banker lap. His fast lap now is 6:32. Same with Bogle, 7:17. They have not put a banker lap in yet. Antonio Saravalli at 2:25. He's not yet put a fast one in either. So Kirkwood's going to have to come out, and whatever he does do, I want to say his fast lap something in the low 150s. So if he goes quicker than that low 150, he'll lose that lap first. Remember, Kirkwood does not want to start at the tail of this field. He wants to start up front. He needs another lap in here. We are back to green. believe they've been able to get the new wing already on the car. No, they're still working on Kirkwood's car now. They got to look to see if whether there's any kind of suspension damage. Nope, Kirkwood actually pulling away. So indeed, just the front wing damage for Kyle. 5.5 minutes left. You know, we thought about this yesterday when a guy like Kyle Kirkwood saying with Christian Rasmussen, all you need to do is finish in a certain place. You never know what happens in a qualifying session like this or a day like this, especially with the rain coming. It's not still out of the question that David Malukas could somehow steal away this championship. But he needs the pole position. That's one of the things, too. If he does not get the pole, he needs maximum points. Every point that Malukas leaves on the table, it allows Kirkwood to finish further up the grid and still lock it in, provided Malukas still wins the race. Let's see how the drivers handle this last 4.5 minutes. So drivers back out on track, as we know. Getting things rolling here. Back to green. A 1:48.071 fast lap so far for Linus Lundqvist. Drivers have had a chance to feel. You can see that car kicking out the minute they start to roll on the throttle, coming out of turn number 9. Probably one of the most treacherous parts of this racetrack in the wet because the car is so light coming over. You're blind over the corner. You can see how many drivers are staying well to the inside, trying to straighten that corner up. 4 minutes remaining. Now, this across the line, they're probably going to get 2, maybe 3 laps. Remember, the alternate timing line. Down coming out of turn number 9. That's where the time actually comes in. Again, Kyle Kirkwood in a great position to win this championship. David Malukas has the opportunity, should he get all 32 points today, to work his way up to 530 points. At 530, Kirkwood would only need to finish 11th. But every point that Malukas leaves on the table, if he finishes second, even with the fast lap and if he leads most laps, it's still 525. That would allow Kirkwood to finish a little farther forward. Rather further backward, not forward, but backward. Malukas doesn't get the pole. The most points he could get at that point would be 529. Kyle Kirkwood would win it. So essentially, if Malukas isn't on the pole, Kirkwood's going to win this championship. Yeah, that's what it is, because at 529, Kirkwood finishing 12th is 529, and he wins the tiebreaker. So if Malukas does not get the pole here, Kirkwood, all he needs to do is start the main event to win the championship. Another driver is spun, coming out down the hill of turn number 5. And I don't know that he's going to be able to refire. That is Manuel Suleiman in the 59 for HMD Motorsports. They're going to get 1 lap in. Indeed, they do. David Malukas goes P1, a 146.787. Malukas does have that pole position right now. So David Malukas to pole. Linus Lundqvist second. Benjamin Peterson third. Devlin DeFrancesco fourth. Kirkwood back up to 5th. 6th is Robert McGinnis. 7th is Lind. And a red flag is coming out with 2 minutes to go. This session is done. So David Malukas on the pole position, and he will keep his dream alive. So Malukas still with an outside shot at 530 points. Yeah. So the red and the checker coming out, folks. That is it for this session. This is just such a tough track in the wet, and obviously these drivers struggling big time to get the grip down. Down the hill there. And again, the 2 toughest parts of this race, or the 3 toughest parts, would be the keyhole, turn 5, coming down here where Suleiman spun, and then, of course, turn number 9 as well. So David Malukas with the pole position, keeping his dream alive. He needs to win the race with all the laps led to go 530 points. Then Kyle Kirkwood would have 530. As long as he doesn't finish dead last, Kirkwood would secure the championship. The layout now, Malukas wins, leads every race, every lap, 530 points. If Kirkwood finishes last, that's 5:29. Malukas could win the championship by 1 point. So we are still not done yet at all, but as it shakes down, Kyle Kirkwood will start in the 5th position. David Malukas with the fast lap, Linus Lundqvist in 2nd, Benjamin Peterson 3rd, Devlin DiFrancesco 4th, Kyle Kirkwood 5th, Robert McGinnis in 6th spot, Rasmus Lint in 7th, Stingray Robb 8th, Daniel Frost 9th, Manuel Suleiman in 10th, Antonio Ceravale and Christian Bogle rounding out the 12 drivers. This has been a very interesting morning here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Temps in the mid-60s right now, but this wet racetrack, it's not even raining at this point here now, but this wet racetrack, maybe a light sprinkle, but the dampness of this track, and it's just so difficult for these drivers to lay down power. We saw an issue in USF 2000 with 3 of our front runners getting together going down into turn number 4, and we've seen drivers struggle here. Benjamin Peterson first, Kyle Kirkwood, your championship leader, going off in turn number 12, then Manuel Suleiman spinning, coming down the hill out of turn number 5. Everybody having trouble. I'll tell you, if you're in your car right now in Indy Pro 2000, you're wondering what the heck is going on out on the racetrack. We will see those drivers indeed in Indy Pro 2000. They're scheduled to go here for their qualifying run in about 15 minutes time. 9:30 schedule start time, folks. I'll be back here in the Road to Indy studio. We got one more qualifying session to go before we start looking forward to that main event. It's USF 2000 at 11 o'clock before we go give you a triple header of Road to Indy races to cap off this VP Fuels Road to Indy finale weekend at Mid-Ohio. Don't go anywhere. We're back at 9:30 local time qualifying for Indy Pro 2000. Welcome back to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car, folks. My name is Rob Howden here for what is the VP Fuels Road to Indy finale weekend. And, man, it's been an interesting morning, has it not? Wet weather that we had kind of expected. It was part of the forecast coming into the weekend here at this particular track. And for this particular weekend, we saw some beautiful days on Friday and Saturday. But that weather we knew was coming in arrived this morning, late last night, as the rain came in, actually yesterday afternoon, late afternoon. It's made things really interesting here this morning. Troubles for drivers in USF 2000 and in the Indy Lights series, as we just saw. Grip levels so low, and I've driven here before in the wet, but nothing with that kind of horsepower. And of course, the Indy Lights drivers struggled mightily to keep their cars on the racetrack. 3 different incidents involving Benjamin Peterson, Kyle Kirkwood, and Manuel Suleiman, all slowing the action in that qualifying session. Interesting, of course, for David Malukas. He needs all 32 points on offer, and then he needs Kyle Kirkwood to finish last to be able to win the championship by 1 point. Malukas stepping up and getting that pole position late in the run there in that session, getting some speed, and got that point he needs. Now he needs to lead from pole and win the entire race. Guys will be battling him on that for sure. He's got a couple of his HMD teammates around him. Moving, though, of course, to Kyle Kirkwood. He's going to start likely in the 5th position, I believe. There was some penalties levied, obviously, with him having that red flag, bringing that red flag out for the incident in turn number 12. This thing's wide open still in Indy Lights. You have to think it's a Kyle Kirkwood position, but the odds, at least the percentage opportunity for David Malukas improving greatly, putting him on the pole position. We got to get back at it again, and we'll see whether or not the drivers here in Indy Pro 2000 can have a little bit better session. It has the rain has stopped. There is obviously some mist still trackside. Drivers, again, have had a feel for it. They've been able to see what's happened on the racetrack thus far for the other 2 categories. Hopefully we can have a much better session here for the drivers in Indy Pro 2000. One of the interesting components of this program right now in this particular session here is we're being told that the number 1 of Christian Rasmussen will not run here in this qualifying session. And probably a good call for Jay Howard and the crew at Jay Howard Driver Development. No need to risk potentially damaging the race car here and not having it repaired by the time they have to roll out for their main event this afternoon at 1:10. That'll be the final race of the 2021 season for the Road to Indy. The final race, of course, for Indy Pro 2000 presented by Cooper Tires. Keeping Rasmussen in pit lane or even in the paddock, all he needs to do is start. The minute he gets the green flag and goes racing in the race this afternoon, he is going to be the champion. But he needs those 9 points that come from finishing 12th to be able to put him over top of the max points that Braden Eves could get, which would be 429. A perfect day for Braden Eves' pole. The fast lap of the race, most laps led and the win, 33 points would move him up into 429 points. Just starting the race would be 432 points for Christian Rasmussen. A little bit of input from trackside. Looks like the rain has started again, very lightly, but hoping that the drivers here in Indy Pro 2000, knowing how treacherous it is out there and the issues that we saw for USF and Indy Lights, can be a little more ginger in terms of getting some laps in. So we are underway. Green flag has flown. 20-minute session, 30-minute time window as we cap off what has been a morning worth of intriguing qualifying. USF 2000 having an issue, 2 issues actually, one involving 3 cars, one just a single car incident into their session. 3 drivers off at the end of turn number 4, the end of the back straightaway. All 3 getting into China Beach, which took a while to get them out. Christian Weir going off in turn number 1 as well. Damage to the wall, the tire wall, and the exit of that. They're all the way past the gravel trap. The AMR safety crew having to go to work to get that tire wall repaired to their liking. We ended up with 2 minutes left in the session. That session scuttled incomplete as they were only able to get 2 laps in, and USF 2000 going to the second fastest lap of qualifying to set the grid for race number 2 on the weekend, which will take place in just over an hour and a half's time, 11 a.m. scheduled start time, the green flag for USF 2000. Indy Lights will be on track at noon, and 1:10 are scheduled green flag time for Indy Pro. Those drivers now on the racetrack getting a feel for this surface, which, again, very, very slippery. We talk a lot about how much this track changes throughout a race weekend or from weekend to weekend, depending on the weather, the temperature, whatever it may be, humidity. It's obviously incredibly slick. I have never seen anything myself in the time I've been here with drivers having this much trouble in terms of grip on this racetrack. Now, it, again, isn't as cool as you may think. If it was mid-50s, you may say, listen, combined with the low grip and the dampness of the racetrack and the temperature, it's 64 degrees here now, trackside. It's not like it's down in the 50s here. So we'll see if our drivers are able to navigate something here in Indy Pro. In fact, first lap, a 157.510. Reese Gold for Juncos Hollinger Racing has worked his way to P1. Braden Eves up into second, Hunter McElroy in third, Christian Brooks fourth, James Rowe fifth. And again, to reiterate, confirm, we will not see Christian Rasmussen, the winner yesterday, who essentially has this championship locked. He only needs to start the second race of the weekend this afternoon. So Christian Rasmussen, the champion-elect, will be running Indy Lights next year. We'll find out which team he elects to move up to Indy Lights with, but the bottom line is a scholarship of over $750,000 for the young Danish driver who has now won 2 championships back-to-back, USF 2000 and 2020, Indy Pro 2000 and 2021. Trying to follow in the footsteps of Kyle Kirkwood, who did the same thing in 18 and 19. Kirkwood looking to be the only driver in the history of this program to win all 3 scholarships in a row. He's definitely got a shot at it here this weekend. All he essentially has to do is not finish last in the main event, and Kyle Kirkwood will take that championship away from David Malukas. Interesting commentary yesterday about the fact that this came from Parker Thompson, that the Indy Lights Championship was so close all season long, but this big run at the end of the season for Kyle Kirkwood, winning the last 4 races, has separated it big time to the point where he actually can clinch, as we know, finishing 11th in the race this afternoon. So it was super close throughout the entire season, but Kirkwood's run of wins here, 4 in a row through Portland, WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, and here at Mid-Ohio have given him the opportunity to lock down this scholarship and championship. Braden Eves now to the top of the charts, a 153.207. Eves in the exclusive Autosport machine P1. In fact, exclusive 1, 2, 3 right now with Eves, Petrov, and Brooks. It's been a really impressive debut for Christian Brooks, electing to skip his final race as a USF 2000 driver, second year. Wins in both his first and second years here in USF 2000, jumping up to Indy Pro here at Mid-Ohio. A 5th place run yesterday, very strong for Christian Brooks as he gets used to this race car. The bigger brakes, the more downforce, the horsepower, the higher cornering speeds, all the little nuances of the jump from USF 2000 to Indy Pro, and he's taken those very quickly and been very comfortable. Now you throw him into a rain situation as well. And Christian looking good here right now, P3. 153.207 though for Braden Eves. He is the fastest driver, over a second quicker than Brooks, over 2 seconds faster than Reese Gold. James Rowe now third. Anam Ahmed coming back to run with Juncos Hollinger Racing here this weekend. Started the season off with RP Motorsports, but budgetary issues put him back on the sidelines. We're hoping to see Anam Ahmed with us next year. Hunter McElroy currently in 7th, Jacob Abel in 8th, Jack William Miller 9th, Wyatt Prokachik 10th, and Jordan Missig, who's making his Indy Pro 2000 debut as well. Like Christian Brooks, having to get a feel for this race car for the first time. Missing a winner this year in the Formula Regional Americas program with Newman Walks Racing. Artem Petrov now to the top. We shouldn't be surprised to see Artem good here in the wet. He was very impressive in the challenging conditions at New Jersey Motorsports Park at the end of August. Petrov in the 42 from St. Petersburg, Russia. In the middle of a battle. This is probably, all told, this is going to be the best fight in terms of getting a championship position. And that's the scrap right now for third. As Artem Petrov looking to try to jump his way up into the third spot. Hunter McElroy, Reese Gold, and Artem Petrov separated by just 7 points now. Hunter McElroy with 362 points, Reese Gold with 356, and Artem Petrov with 355. There is an opportunity for Petrov to jump from 5th to 3rd with a good day here today. Petrov P1, that would be a solid start. Indy Pro 2000 drivers doing a good job so far as we have 9 minutes of green flag running already into this 20-minute session. 20 minutes within a 30-minute window. Again, that 30-minute window being used up for USF 2000 with the damage in turn 1 and the significant cleanup needed for 3 drivers off in China Beach at the end of turn number 4. It took a while to get those cars all extricated out of the gravel. Christian Brooks now goes to the top of the charts, a 150.786. Brooks to P1, followed by Inam Ahmed. He'll go to P1 now for Juncos Racing. Track potentially drying up a little bit. Drivers getting a better feel for the track itself. Ahmed, Brooks, Eves, Petrov, top 4. Reese Gold, 5th. McElroy, 6th. Rose, 7th. Ten minutes remaining, right at the halfway point of this session. Hunter McElroy now up to 2nd in the Pabst Racing number 18. Our morning coverage here on Road to Indy TV will complete after this session. At that point, we will look forward to getting back at it for the first of 3 races here, but I want to say about 10:40 Eastern Time, the start of the pre-race show for the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship. We won't lift off the throttle much at that point till the very end of the day. Really, right out of USF 2000 into Indy Lights, right out of Indy Lights into Indy Pro. 3 great races for you here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course to cap off what has been a very exciting 2021 season. Ahmed still on top. Former British Formula 3 champion and World Karting champion as well. Ahmed in the number 22. Everybody getting a better feel for it here. Ahmed from London, England. So just as we have some time here, we'll give you a quick little update. USF 2000, again, with that qualifying session getting canceled, going to the second fastest lap of race number 2. That's going to put Michael D'Orlando on the pole position alongside Yuvan Sundaramurthy. It'll be Jace Denmark and Nolan Siegel on row 2, Kiko Porto and Josh Green on row 3. Row 4 will be Josh Pearson and Spike Kohlbecker. Row 5, Prescott Campbell and Miles Rowe. Again, second fastest lap of qualifying for race number 1, what we're using for the grid for race number 2. As we had those issues, as we said. McElroy still on top with about 8 minutes remaining in the session. He has gone to P1 with a 149.160. Hunter McElroy trying to hold on to 3rd in the championship standings. Finished 2nd in USF 2000 back in 2019. Capped off the debut season for Pabst Racing and Indy Pro 2000 with a victory. Driver off going into turn 4, able to get somehow out of China Beach. So nicely done there through a big, huge puddle. Going to pick up which driver that is. Looks like one of the Juncos Hollinger cars potentially. Right now it's McElroy, Petrov, Ahmed, Brooks, and Eves as the top 5. Jack William Miller trying to navigate his way through turn number 12 and 13. Christian Brooks now back to the top with a 148.571. Quick little look at the fast times for the drivers in Indy Pro 2000. 146, or rather in Indy Lights, a 146.7. Right now, the drivers in Indy Pro driving 148.5, so just about 2 seconds off. Hard for those drivers in Indy Lights to get that power down. A little better, a little easier here in Indy Pro. Christian Brooks on top, the rookie in the program. Of course, 2 years of USF 2000 racing, jumping up here to the second level of the Road to Indy on the penultimate races of the season. Capping off the year. Expect to see Christian Brooks in Indy Pro 2000 next year. Christian Brooks on top, as we said, 148.5, 2/10 faster than Hunter McElroy. Reese Gold up now into the third spot. McElroy, Gold, and Petrov, the drivers battling it out. Oh, potential spin coming on the front straight. Nope. Good save there. About 9 different camera views for me here right now where we are in the Road to Indy TV studio. Here's the shot coming out of the keyhole down the straightaway through the kink turn number 3. Into the braking zone of turn number 4. You can see the different line being used. Obviously, the rubber to the outside of the racetrack does not mix. You see a lot of times the drivers will run a vastly different line around the racetrack, maybe going wide all the way out through, trying to stay away from that rubber and oil mixture, which would be the racing line. When you get that water on that, it's that just definitely does not mix. Driver has spun around here on the exit of turn number 12, trying to transition back to 13. See if he's able to get that car refired. 5 minutes remaining. Indeed, that driver getting rolling again. Right in the middle of the racetrack, though. Needs to just get the car backed up. There we go. Doing a good job so far. Back at it again. Stay away from that rumble. Anything painted, that's trouble. Might have been the 51 of Jacob Abel. Okay, that was Jack William Miller getting told by our spotters. So Jack William Miller, the driver, going around there. Jacob Abel currently running in the 8th spot, Miller in 11th. Hunter McElroy back to the top again, a 146.717. So McElroy, 8 thousandths quicker than Artem Petrov. Anam Ahmed running in 3rd. Christian Brooks 4th. Reese Gold 5th. Eves now 6th. Rowe 7th. 4 minutes remaining in the session. Last qualifying session of the 2021 season. We cap things off here at Mid-Ohio with the VP Fuels Road to Indy finale weekend. Challenging conditions for our drivers here today. Not that we didn't know it was coming. A number of teams, I think, thinking about that in terms of using their slick tires yesterday. Rolling the dice that we were going to get this rain today, meaning you got to use those tires up. Any slick tires you didn't use, you'll have them for testing, because the bottom line is it's potentially going to be wet all day long. We'll see whether or not it dries up by the time we go racing this afternoon, but, man, this track is wet. McElroy back to the top of 146.717. Petrov 2nd, Ahmed 3rd. Brooks and Gold, your current top 5. 3 minutes still to go. Again, 10:40. We should be back just under an hour from now. We'll start the pre-show for the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship Race 2. Parker Thompson will be back with me here in the Road to Indy TV studio. McElroy's 146.717, just 8 thousandths of a second faster than Artem Petrov's 146.726. Car's starting to get a little bit lighter. Let's see if they can put the power down here. Fuel burning off after 17 plus minutes on the racetrack. Indy Pro 2000 showing our drivers how it's done. A lot of stoppages in both USF 2000 and Indy Lights, but of course the track has got better and better throughout the sessions. Jordan Missig and Wyatt Prokachek turning their fastest laps from the last time by. Jordan Missig jumping up into the 8th position, the Illinois driver, the number 19 for Pabst Racing. Wyatt Prokachek for Jay Howard Driver Development now 9th. Jacob Abel 10th. Jack William Miller 11th. And again, in 12th with no time, Christian Rasmussen not electing to roll the dice on potentially damaging his race car. All he needs to do is take the green flag for an opportunity to win the championship. Anam Ahmed stealing away top time here with the seconds ticking away. A driver off as well in the turn 12 corner. Getting back on, just off into the grass a little bit. Anam Ahmed goes P1 here with a minute remaining, 146.156. a half a second faster than McElroy. This track definitely starting to come in. A racing line kind of developing a little bit here. Ahmed P1, McElroy second, Petrov third, Brooks fourth, Gold fifth, Eves in sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth, Rowe, Missig, and Brkacik, Abel, and Miller, 10th and 11th. Rain racing, not something that a lot of our drivers get to do, man. It's not like you can't see rain coming and all of a sudden schedule a test day. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Same with the race weekends. A lot of these drivers can go through their entire road to Indy career and not get a chance to run in the rain. Kyle Kirkwood talked about the fact that he's never raced in the rain here at Mid-Ohio, even though it's kind of one of his home racetracks in terms of his performance and abilities. He's never been beaten here at Mid-Ohio in the road to Indy. Checker flag going to fly this time by, folks, as that's it. Alternate timeline coming out of turn number 9. Anam Ahmed on top, 146.156. Ahmed looking good here in the wet. Hunter McElroy second, Petrov third. Final lap, though. See if anybody has anything. I'm going to slide it across the line. So we'll hold our breath a bit here for the drivers coming across the line to complete this qualifying session. They went all the way through with no red flags. Nicely done for the drivers in Indy Pro 2000. Ahmed on top, 146.156. Petrov goes to second. Not quite enough, but Artem Petrov, P2. Christian Brooks moves up to third. McElroy fourth. Eves now fifth. Still a couple drivers to come across the line, as you can see, getting that power down. Lots of drivers going quickest on the final lap. Petrov, Brooks, Eves, Rowe, Missig, and Brkacik all turning their best laps on the final lap. And Hunter McElroy on the final circuit steals it away from Ahmed. 145.117. A full second faster. So the last driver to come across the line, Hunter McElroy, leverages it. A bonus point trying to hold on to P3 in the championship. And McElroy 145.117 grabs that pole position. Anam Ahmed second, Artem Petrov third, Christian Brooks in fourth, Braden Eves fifth. There's your top five. It looked like Anam Ahmed for Juncos Racing had the position, but no. On the final circuit, Hunter McElroy a full second faster, 145.117. So McElroy will put that Pabst Racing machine on the pole. You go back to when we were here in July, he was able to win the second race of the weekend here at Mid-Ohio. Struggled a bit earlier in the weekend, but he'll start on the pole here this afternoon when we go racing for Indy Pro. McElroy, Ahmed, Petrov, Brooks, and Eves. Top five drivers in qualifying for Indy Pro. We got a bit of a break in the action, and not a long one, about 50 minutes in total, maybe 45 when we're all said and done. As qualifying now done for race number 2. 3 events, one each in all the categories of this Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. Still on the docket for today. We'll be back with the pre-show for USF 2000. Parker Thompson will join me here in the studio. 10:40 a.m. Eastern. We'll start our pre-show 11 o'clock, the green flag for the drivers in the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship. From there, we'll move to Indy Lights, presented by Cooper Tires. A noon start time for that race, as Kyle Kirkwood and David Malukas will face off for one more time here in Indy Lights Racing. And then we'll cap off the entire 2021 season, a 1:10 green flag for the Indy Pro 2000 Championship presented by Cooper Tires. And we'll call it quits and see who our 3 champions end up being. And, of course, wrapping the year up with the celebration at the awards banquet this evening. Looking forward to getting everybody together. I'm told the banquet actually oversold. It is going to be packed. Standing room only, essentially, for the banquet tonight, and it's been a tremendous year here as part of the Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. That caps things off for the morning qualifying shows here on the Road to Indy TV. We thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of everyone from the program, great to have you with us again, but back at 10:40 later on here this morning, about 45 minutes from now, it'll be time to go wheel-to-wheel racing here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Until then, enjoy your morning. My name's Rob Howden. Bye for now.